Welcome to Heal Yourself with Sarah Dawkins, the podcast that shares real people healing real everyday life problems. Today we're talking to Reah Hagues. Reah is a mum, wife, daughter, author, entrepreneur, and advocate with a background in psychology and mental health. Reah has written and published multiple books, including an autobiography and workbooks on parenting. So, welcome, Reah. Thank you for
Hello.
joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, the pleasure's all mine. So, Reah, would you like to share what's happened in your own life and what's led you to the healing that you've done?
Absolutely. So, my healing journey is maybe a little bit different than, when you think of healing, most of the time we think physical healing. My healing journey has been a little more emotional healing than physical, although all encompassing, I guess, but with a focus on healing is healing. So my healing journey really started about maybe about 8 or so years ago. When I started to write my autobiography. I started this autobiography and I started to write about things that were really difficult emotionally. That I didn't realize how difficult emotionally they were until I actually started writing about it. I started writing this autobiography. I started talking about these things were just painful experiences, and I was like, man, I really haven't grown from this at all. Like this still hurts. Maybe I should focus on using this writing as a way to get through things and heal from them. Kind of like your writing story. I didn't put the book away. I put the book away because talking about these things it hurt. It was painful, and I didn't like that. So I was like, okay, maybe I'll work through these things and then I'll come back later because I don't want to, change is difficult, and I don't know that I'm ready to change and get through it yet. So fast forward probably about 5 years ago too. I was speaking with a publisher about the workbooks that I started writing, and the conversation comes up about the autobiography, and she's like, "Tell me a little bit more about that." So I start talking to her about the autobiography. I read her like the first paragraph. She says, "I want that book." She's like, "These workbooks sound great, but I want this book." And I was like, "Oh, well, that one, I started it and then I put it away because it was difficult." And she's like, "Let's work through this together." So that's kind of really what started my healing journey, because up until then, I, I was just kind of, emotions were something that I didn't really like. Uh, you know, I was good at expressing anger and frustration, but sadness, even really like true excitement, were things that were like, I want to kind of stay away from those. you know, um, so, we were talking about writing this book. In the book, I talk about different relationships. My relationship, primarily, chapter 1 is my relationship with my father, which is it's it's been a roller coaster through the years. My father was an addict, an alcoholic, really, really good dad when I was little. When I, kind of had my little, rose-colored glasses on, didn't really understand a lot of things. Really good relationship, and I spent a lot of time trying to just kind of keep that being who my father was. Once I realized the addictions and things, I spent a lot of time just trying to stay away so that I wouldn't forget the good times. fast forward to, years later, I'm writing this book, and I'm kind of being forced a little bit to talk about and experience these emotions and things that I started writing more of the book. I was working with the publisher who was also, she did some coaching, support things to work through these difficult things that I'm talking about. Encouraged me and my family. Once I told them about the book that I was writing, a lot of them were like, yes, keep going. We support you. Things like that. The family I had good relationships with, we'll just put it that way, was very supportive. They were like, we support you putting these things out here. We support your healing from them. My fiance at the time, even my kids, who had kind of been around for these things, because I had two of my kids when I was a teenager, so they're watching me grow up. They're watching me experiencing these things. And they've also experienced me staying away from some of these things, the things that were difficult, not experiencing them, not talking about them. And even they were like, we support you through this. At the time of writing the book, I wasn't speaking to really my whole side of my father's family. And it was mostly just because kind of selfishness, I didn't want it to be in my face that my father was an addict. Cause then then my perception of him changed and things. And it was just easier to hold on to the good memories. Right about the time of writing the book also, I started college for psychology. And this is where I really, really, between psychology and holistic mental health and wellness, is where I really, really learned to, okay, now you've experienced these things, you've started, feeling these things, you've kind of gone back on them, and now you're kind of reliving them, but in a healthier way. Let's figure out why these things hurt you. Let's figure out also how these hurtful things are affecting your relationships. Because, like I said, not only did I kind of cut ties with a whole side of the family, I also, there was a point where I was really stressed. I'm I've got kids, I've got a mother-in-law, I've got a fiance, I've got an ex-husband, I've got all these things. I'm writing, I'm in school, I'm coming home from work, and I'm just, my little one at the time, I specifically remember, would be up, and I'm coming home and I'm like, oh, why is he not in bed? I'm tired, I'm ready to go to bed. Instead of like, oh, I missed you, you're so cute. Oh, you waited up for me because you wanted to say goodnight. I'm just like, oh, why is he still up? I want to go to bed, realizing the relationship with my fiance at the time being strained because of stress and not coping and deflecting and all these things, and then my children being impatient, short-tempered, all these things, right? And of course, I wasn't really taking care of my body because, so I'm in school for psychology at this point, and I've put out, I think at this point I've put out the book, but I'm still not talking to part of my family. The book does talk about some of those members of the family, and although I kept the book very tasteful, even in the sense of, the first chapter is about my relationship with my father, partially. It's also about other male relationships, father figures, my ex-husband, my fiance at the time, and things like that, who is my now husband. But I remember, I'm going through all these changes, I'm going through all these emotions. And at one point, I randomly said, you know what? I'm trying to do better, with my relationships, I drove about an hour and a half to South Carolina where my family is. I met up with one family member. I told one person I was there. And I was like, I'm only going to come see you. I want to visit my grandmother's grave. And, took the older kids with me. And my aunt, who's the only person I told I was there, she said, did you let your sister know you were here? And I was like, no, because she takes my father's side and I don't want to talk to her. Well, you should probably just call her and let her know. So I was like, I call her and nothing negative to say. I mean, we hadn't talked in, I don't know, a year plus, and she answers and she's like, hey, fast forward, we're talking and I'm like, I think we're to come and see you. She's like, yes, please do. I go, I see her, visit with her. Still was not planning on going to see my father because, again, that's painful. I don't want to deal with it. And she convinces me to go see my father. I go see my father. My stepmom does it. She's just like, hey, just kind of sits back and lets me, do what I'm there to do. And it was something about her in that experience that I was like, why do I not like her?
Yeah.
It's something about when you separate yourself from a situation and you have time to sit back away from the situation and reflect and think not only about the situation, but your responses and your reactions to the situation, that when you're back in that situation, you're kind of like, what was I so reluctant about, and it's because you've had time to process the things that you didn't give your time to process before, yourself time to process before. Excuse me. So,
and you've been to college and you've done some psychology and you've processed all that information as well on top of that.
Yeah. I mean, between writing the book and the psychology, the courses that I took and the education and the information that I got from that, those two things really did help kind of transform the rest of my life. Because I've learned how to understand certain things. I've learned more now how the brain works. I've learned more how emotions work, and I understand this stuff more now. And so it kind of started with trying to heal those relationships. And then I just started to put other things in place with my own children. I'm writing this book. I'm really kind of diving into who I was as a teenager raising children. Like, first of all, why? Not, why. I mean, I love my kids and I really wouldn't go change things that would have made them not be here, but why is a child raising a child? That's not a smart idea anyway. So naturally, I'm a child raising a child with no solid father figure in my everyday life. And their fathers are absent. And so now I'm this single parent who doesn't know what I'm freaking doing. And I'm a child. So, there's your first, I wouldn't say mistake, but there's your first not best choice. So, I've had other relationships in the past that could have used healing, right?
Yeah.
But I didn't really start healing anything until I started feeling and letting myself process and heal. So I worked on healing those relationships. And then in the process, I'm working on healing my relationships in my home too, with the education and understanding and life experience that I have at that point. Okay, why am I coming home frustrated? Because kids are up and happy to see me, and I'm upset because I'm tired. Like, I'm really, really doing this all wrong here. And we know that our mental, our physical, our emotional, all these, our financial, everything coincides, right? So when you're struggling financially, when you're not sleeping well, when you're working all the time, and you're working while your kids are at school, and then you're I was working in the afternoon, so my kids were at school, and then I go to work, and then I come home at bedtime. So I'm already not spending time with my children just because that's what the schedule needs to be.
Yeah.
Um, we had a little one. He worked during the day, so it was just more convenient for me to work in the afternoon so that there was someone in the house.
Yeah.
And then his mother lived with us, and she was sick. Someone to kind of be there for her and to take care of the kids and things like that. So just financial stress, the stress of also going from being a single parent to now having a full household, which is a wonderful thing, but it's certainly an adjustment. I've had, I've really only at that point had a partner for a few years of my, I don't know, 13 or so, 14, 15 years of being a parent. So I've lived so much of that. Okay, I have to worry about everything. And that was a relationship strain that became between me and my then fiance, because it caused this kind of unsmooth transition. you go from being a single parent to, okay, now I have help. So I either expect everything of you, or I still expect to do everything myself. And that doesn't work when you are trying to have a cohesive partnership.
Yeah.
So that was a relationship that still to the day I'm trying to work on nurturing and growing in, as well as my relationship with my sister, my stepmom, my own mom, my kids. I spent a lot of time too stressing about things that I couldn't change, the past. And I do want to kind of just say that is something that's very important in mending and nurturing relationships, is the fact that you can't hold the past against the other person, and you can't hold it against yourself. As long as the mistakes that you made in the past are being nurtured and grown through, and you're not repeating those, you really have to leave it in the past. And that means for yourself too.
Yeah.
You can't continue to torture yourself for things that you did when you were less educated, when you were less experienced in life. You just can't.
When you didn't have the skills and knowledge that you do now. And it's easy to look back to the past with 2020 vision, but at the time when you were in it, you didn't have that skills and knowledge. So all you can do is the best that you can do at any one time. And it's more challenging when you're tired, and it's more challenging when you've got all that responsibility and you are a single parent. So there's so many more challenges. But then having a stable relationship also brings challenges, because it's stepping into the unknown.
Yeah, absolutely. And then my now husband didn't have any kids. But we are also going into a relationship with an experienced parent and a completely new parent of kids and teenagers at the time. One thing I really try to focus on now is expectations. I can't expect someone else to know the same things that I do. They don't have my life experience. They don't have necessarily my education. Most importantly, my life experience. Your expectations in your relationships have to be feasible for the relationship. And that's expectations of where the relationship will go, of what things that your partner does, things that your partner quote unquote should do. Your expectations for your kids, for the path you want your children to take, just anything. Your expectations have to be appropriate for the relationship. and you have to be able to modify them.
Yeah, yeah. Because at the end of the day, I mean, what do we want for our children? We want them to be happy in life. We want them to do a job that they want to do. You know, it's
Yes.
easy to go, I'd love you to be this because that's got prestige. It's, you know, it's a well respected profession. But actually, if that's not what you want to do, then you're just going to be unhappy all your life. So, what
Exactly. Yeah.
and we've learned that through our daughter. You know, we just wanted to be happy. She's paying her bills and she's working enough hours to pay her bills and still have time to spend to herself. You know,
Yeah.
she's worked that out, and that's at the end of the day, that's all we ever want, is for them to be happy and healthy and enjoy what it is that they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, happy, healthy, and successful. That's what I want from our kids. And we've gone through kind of times where my husband and I are like, okay, well, this is what I want you to do, and having a young adult kids,
Yeah.
it's really a like that may be what you want, but you
Yeah.
know, this
But
is
there
what
are
I
some rules.
and so I have to just kind of be like, okay, as long as you're happy, healthy, and successful, I
Yes.
need you to meet that criteria for me.
Yeah.
How you do those things, it really has to be your choice. But
Yeah, and how do we
just meet
define
those.
success as well? You know, I define success as a roof over your head, food in your fridge, friends that love you, and you know, you can pay your bills.
Yeah.
That's success.
Can you provide for yourself? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
So how you've covered some of the relationships you've got now. How how much more healing do you think you have to do in your relationships? Because we never truly fully healed, are we? But do you see improvements in your relationships now? And
Oh,
have
yeah.
you identified work that you still need to do in some of your relationships?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I 100% see improvement in all of my relationships, because they're healthy. We can talk to each other about things. My kids can even come and talk to me about things that I feel like a lot of parents probably wouldn't be approachable about.
Yeah.
My husband, the same. He talks to me about a lot of stuff that I feel like people probably don't share with their wives because they're either afraid of the response or judgment, and it could be anything, you know. I can have conversations with my mother about how I feel about certain things, and I can do that without being offensive to her,
Yeah.
or feeling like I probably can't talk to her about that because I don't, she might just get upset.
Yeah.
And that's not so much her. However, she has done work too, but it's partly my expectations, not always expecting the worst, or not always expecting the negative reaction,
Yeah.
and things like that. And being vulnerable enough to say, okay, well, you know what? It's okay if she has feelings, really with anybody. It's
Yeah.
okay if they feel a certain way. Having teenagers, you have to be ready for any emotions. And
Yeah, yes, exactly, exactly. And be okay and validate, that you're feeling that
yeah.
emotion. So that's what you're feeling. It's valid to feel that.
Hmm. Yeah.
And we can dig underneath it. And where's that emotion come from and what's led to that and how do you feel about that? We can do that
Yeah.
if it's appropriate. But sometimes the children just need to offload, because they haven't got the understanding of what's happening and why it's happening. But if they can
Yeah.
verbalize what's going on, they're in a great place.
Yeah. I feel like my kids are pretty self-aware kids. Even my 8-year-old said something the other day. I said something and he goes, I respect your answer, or I respect your response, or something like that. But I feel blah blah blah. And I was like,
Oh, how
I'm
wonderful.
so proud of you for that.
Yes,
Like
that's so fabulous, so
yeah.
self-aware.
Yes, yes. I feel like they all are, and learning certain things. I try to also teach them
Yeah.
Because, and I didn't always have this realization, but I realized at one point, oh, like they learn from everything I do, right?
Absolutely.
So if I am and I'm still not perfect. I hate people who can't drive, and there's a special spot for them. I still yell at them. I'm really working on it, I promise. But
It's a process.
I'm but I promise, I'm like, "Ugh, I probably shouldn't do that because this one's going to be driving someday, and I
Yeah.
already have one that drives that yells at people like I do. Like, we'll never like roll down our window or get out of our car. It's just,
Yeah.
we're just venting inside of our space.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm like, that's such a,
That's so me.
she's a me 2.0 because she's a better person than me. But man, if that's not me, like, you know,
Yeah.
but so there are, and like I said, I don't always do it, but I really try to be aware just in life of how I'm responding to things, how I'm reacting to things, how I am setting them up as future adults to
Yes.
handle and respond to things too. And I can see it in things that ways they come to me, how they support me, how they with responses like that. Well, I respect your response, but
Yeah. Fantastic.
as far as I do feel like I still have things to learn and grow in my relationships, because even if I felt like I was top successful in all of them, it's still always important to keep growing. It's always important to still take components of your life, just like with driving, or how I may quick react to this person, or sometimes take emotions of teenagers personally.
Yeah.
It's important to still constantly grow from these things and still learn, and never be like, oh, I know everything. My coaching focuses on family and relationships, and I'm still constantly trying to grow to be a better example of the things that I teach to them, to clients, to in my books, whatever. It's no matter how successful you are at something, it's always important to keep growing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And talking of your clients and your books, where can people find you?
So you can find me at Falolity, FALOLITY.net. I also have a podcast. It's on YouTube and Podbean. If you go to Podbean takes you to all the platforms, iTunes. We're working on Spotify because Spotify changed some things, but all the platforms you can think of, you can find me on at Podbean. Falolity.podbean.com for all audio. And for video, YouTube at Just the Who of Us. Who is in quotations, so just the who in quotations of us. The books and everything are on the website, falolity.net.
All your books are on your website.
Yeah.
Fabulous. And Reah, could you share with us one tip that people listening today could take away with them to help themselves on their own healing journey within relationships?
Absolutely. Continue to grow. Continue to grow in your life, your relationships, your expectations. Find the thing that you're working on and just continue to grow from it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you for having me. I love it. I'm so glad I got to be here.
Yeah, and your journey will help others.
I hope so. Thank you.
Reah. If you enjoyed this, please like and comment on the episode, subscribe to my channel, and share this with anyone you think would also enjoy it and would benefit from it. Thank you.